Today I'm going to take a look at two eras of Glencoe 8-year-old full-strength blended malt whiskey. First is its original packaging in mini form from the, I'd say, late 60s to early 70s. And then we have its packaging when I bought this bottle in 2018. Glencoe blended malt whiskey was produced at Nevis both in this era and in this era. And Nevis single malt is most likely the most prevalent ingredient in the mix in both of these whiskeys. Nevis Distillery was founded in 1825 by Long John MacDonald. About 130 years before that, a bunch of Long John's ancestors were slaughtered by the troops of William II at Glencoe. In the 1960s, one of Long John's relatives, Rory MacDonald, started this brand, this blend, MacDonald's Glencoe, in remembrance of that event in the 17th century. Now, this is what it originally looked like. This was, I believe, the original packaging for it. Glencoe would later have a red label, and then it had kind of a dull beige label. And then, in the aughts, this was the packaging design for it. About a year ago, it underwent another change so that Glencoe would more closely match the packaging for the Nevis single malt releases. Both of these Glencoes are blended malts or vatted malts, which means they're a blend of only malt whiskeys. There's no grain whiskey, there's no column still whiskey, just malt whiskey from pot stills. They are both bottled without any added colorant. They are both 8 years old. And they were both bottled at a high alcohol percentage. This is 58% alcohol, and this is 57.1% alcohol, or 100 UK proof. And now a word on UK proof. Before 1816, the British Navy measured the strength of their rum by lighting rum-soaked gunpowder. If it ignited, it was proof. In 1816, Bartholomew Sykes discovered that proof point was approximately 57.1% alcohol by volume. Thus, 57.1% was 100 proof. The Sykes scale became law in the United Kingdom in 1818. It wasn't until 1980 that the UK switched to ABV for their high-proof spirit labels. Here's a chart showing familiar ABV points and their UK proof measurements. And now, back to our regularly scheduled drinking. I'm a little out of practice here. It's been several months since I've done one of these videos, so I have to make sure I actually remember how to open up a bottle. And I'm also going to have a little bit of water to add to these whiskeys because they are so strong. MacDonald's Glencoe Malt Whiskey, 100 proof, 8 years old. Bottled likely in the late 60s to early 70s. MacDonald's Glencoe, 8 years old, bottled at 58% and likely bottled within the last 5 years or so. I'm going to be trying these both without water and with water. The original version of MacDonald's Glencoe. It's very fruity and barley forward. There are pears, there are apricots, there are peaches, like white peaches. There's mint, there's anise. And there's also nothing approaching old bottle effect. This feels very fresh. It's also a little grassy on the nose. Sand and polyester in there, too, to give it a little bit of an edge. Contemporary Glencoe in a very generous pour. It's yeasty, it's a little beefy. I'd even say there's a little bit of like nutty sherry cask action going on here. One might say there's a little bit of sulfur in there, or one might not. Slange. Oh, that's where the heat is. You have to let that heat burn off a little bit. Second sip is more approachable now that my taste buds have awoken. You have dirty rocks and carpet burlap. But there's also cinnamon and cardamom and a little bit of molasses. It's been about 20 minutes and I'm starting to get some more bourbon cask notes. I'm thinking like butterscotch and caramel. So I'm a little more nervous about this one. So this video ends abruptly. It means I didn't make it. Cheers. Less heat than expected. Definitely sherry casks here. Dried fruit notes, more along the lines of golden raisins rather than black raisins. It's very nutty. There's some honey, a little bit of lime juice, some brown sugar, ginger snap cookies. What may have been a little bit of sulfur in the nose does not show up on the palate. Doing some math. It's time to hydrate this whiskey. I'm going to drop the ABV to 50%. It's time to hydrate this one, and I'm also going to try to drop its ABV down to 50%. The diluted nose. I smell old baseball cards and that hard, crappy bubble gum that came in the pack. The nose still has its fruit, though it's turning a little bit towards cherries and clay. The diluted version of this one. On the other hand, this gets stinkier. Just intense beef stock, beef broth, beef bouillon. There's Worcestershire sauce, cornbread, chalk, dried currants, and potato chips. Slange again. Still plenty feisty. So much darker, so much more industrial and herbal on the palate than it is on the nose. There's a mintiness, an almost effervescent sparkle in the finish. Cheers again. Seriously, this is almost the reverse of this one. The palate is not as hairy as you'd think it's going to be. There's chocolate, there are prunes, there's caramel. It's almost reminiscent of Glenfarclas, actually. Wood smoke at the back of the finish. With time, the oak starts emerging. Some final thoughts. These both have the Beauty and Beast thing going on. This one has a very pretty nose, full of fruit and just brightness. And the palate is much darker, a little industrial, a little gritty. As for the contemporary Glencoe, the nose is more beastly and the palate is more approachable. This one seems to swim much better than this one. I only diluted it to 50%, and already it has awakened a lot of the oak character, which begins to supplant the really good spirit notes in there. In the meantime, it's time to bring the past and the present together. To Clan MacDonald. Yum.
Papa, your time is up.
Sounds like my time is up.